Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio over on Saga 960. I want to introduce you tonight to Siobhan Kukolic, who is a storyteller at heart. She writes to inspire the belief that we have all that we need to change if we wish to see it. The Treasure You Seek is her first book. It's available on Amazon and Indigo, and it's about following your heart, believing in yourself beyond reason, embracing failure, and knowing that you are enough. Siobhan Kukolic, welcome to the show.
That's it. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you so much for joining us. You also blog for the Huffington Post and Thrive Global. You blog weekly on your website, and you give a keynote talk on having grit. Sounds fascinating.
Yes.
How did you get into all of this?
Well, I'm a mother of three, and I've always told my kids, believe in yourself beyond reason. You can do anything you want to do. And back in the year 2000, I decided I want to publish a book. So I made a goal of 100 rejection letters because Dr. Seuss got 43 for his first story. So I thought I'll go a little higher. And it was a great spin on it because then every rejection letter was like a yellow brick on the yellow brick road to my Oz, right? So when I got that rejection letter, tick it off the list, I'm going towards my goal. And after, about 32 rejections for various children's book manuscripts. January 1st, 2016, I just thought, I'm going to start a blog. New year, new ideas. So 3 mornings a week with 3 young kids, I would get up 40 minutes before I had to bolt from the house and drive the kids to school because we were out of district. At that time, we were moving between. And I would stare at a blank page, think of something that inspired me, famous failures, stories about folks that have done things and made things happen that don't seem possible. And I would have to proofread it and submit, spell check, 40 minutes and done. So 4 months into that process, I was picked up. Huffington Post allowed me to start blogging for them. Ariana Huffington was lovely. And again, if I had waited to ask for that opportunity before starting blindly, I wouldn't have had something, that they could look at and say, okay, she's already blogging. So that really got my mojo going. And then the end of that year, December of the same year, I signed a contract to publish. And by the following June, I was doing my first book signing at Indigo. So it went from, waiting for something to happen to making something happen. And I tell my kids that all the time. It's in your hands. Just, you win or you learn. There's no losing. Failure is the step before success.
And the book is called?
It's called The Treasure You Seek, and it's at Indigo, Amazon. And it's all about, embracing failure, having grit. And I find the famous failure stories are so powerful because most times people look at famous people and think, oh, they had connections, they had money, they had an opportunity. I don't. But when you hear about the struggles, Michael Jordan missing 9,000 shots before he gets to this, to the superstar that he was. And, J.K. Rowling getting turned down by multiple publishers, Sylvester Stallone, I think 1,500 rejections for Rocky. And in the end, he still fought to be in it as a no-name actor at the time. Edison with the 10,000, failures before he found that success. This is the thing. We have to remember it's a mountain. Even like a really popular book right now, Lessons in Chemistry, that I just read, her first book got 98 rejections. And now it's like, everyone is reading it. It's an amazing book. So never give up and put one foot in front of the other.
Why do you think that embracing failure and having grit affect the way that we look at the world?
Well, I think, I've always told my kids perfection is the enemy of good. Right. So I am a writer and I train copywriter and I do communications and PR and things like that. And a blank page is the enemy, so just start writing, get something down. The first draft is never great, but sitting there with a blank page is getting no one anywhere. Right. So I feel like in today's society, sometimes people are just so worried about seeming to not know the answer or looking like a failure when, if you're vulnerable and, I want to be the person asking the questions and I don't mind putting my hand up and, learning. I always want to be, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, as they say, right? You want to be around people you can learn from. And I think if we can be more vulnerable and realize the bravery in that vulnerability, that can really help us shine, and people are worried about, am I going to fail if I get into this program or why don't I know at 15 what I'm going to do for the rest of my life when, most of us are, in our 5th and 6th decades and we still don't know potentially what we want to do. So how can we expect young kids in high school to know right away what they want to do? And I think society, you get on this escalator, as they say, and you just keep doing the next thing. And all of a sudden you wake up and wonder, how did I get here? But you're so worried about failing and doing the wrong thing that you just do what society has set out. And that's not, that's not for everyone. As they say, you can't teach a fish to climb trees, right? So if the fish is always climbing trees, they're never going to know what a superstar they are. until they're in the water, right? So we got to make sure everyone has that opportunity.
But we have this attitude that's very negative toward failure, and we're embarrassed by failure, and we brag about our success, and we post it on social media, and we talk about resilience and determination, and hitting your head against the wall until you win. What you're saying is, don't. If you can't climb a tree, if you're a fish, do something different. Figure out what you're good at.
That's exactly it. And I think there's a lot of strength in somebody saying, live to other people, I made a mistake. I did the wrong thing here and I've learned from it. And the whole thing is like, will you make change from that mistake? Right. So I've told my kids when they were young and I was driving them to school, they would kind of jump out in the drive-through at the school like Navy SEALs. And I would always say to them on the way there, believe in, and they'd say yourself, try your best, choose your friends wisely. And I always said, everyone makes mistakes. How you act after a mistake can make it better or worse. So that idea that, things can go wrong as long as you embrace it and address it and say what you're going to do next, that's the key. My oldest, he's 20 now, but like last fall at 19, he ran for mayor of Oakville and totally on his own. His goal was to increase voter turnout and he got 1,500 votes, which is great. But again, he could have sat there and thought, well, how can I do this? How do I even do it? He figured it all out. He did it. He did his platform. He did his debates on his own. I was actually out of town when he had the week of debates. And, it's all about, he didn't win, but he had an amazing learning experience. One of the things he kept talking about was, why don't we have free transit for seniors and young people? And a couple of weeks ago, the town passed free transit for seniors and young people. So did he win the race? No. But did he potentially make a mark and learn and make change? I think he 100% did. And I think we all have that opportunity in life.
And is he going to run again?
Well, he's in film school right now at Sheridan, and he's making his first feature film right now. So they did their Kickstarter, and they're out there doing it. But he's always been. This is an example. When he was young, about 11, he came to me and said, "Why is the voting age so high? Why isn't it lower?" And I said, "Well, write a letter to the editor." So he wrote a letter to the Mississauga News at age 11 about decreasing the voting age. That got him on News Talk 1010. He ended up chatting on News Talk 1010. They had him back a few times during the election, and he always had that love for kind of talking about politics and getting involved. And then, was he trained to run for mayor? No, but he always was engaged in talking about issues. And he ended up being president of his high school when he was there. And he fought for the Catholic board here in Oakville to raise the pride flag. Didn't happen the year he was there. It happened a couple of years after he left. But again, was his experience a failure? No, it was him getting out there and trying. So I think it's so important to not be scared of failure. I think failure is strength. And if you kind of say, I don't know, I find people who know all the answers, it's not the very wise people. The very wise people know that the more you know, the less you know. So just go out and try to find those answers.
I love these speak and repeat things you did with your kids. Can you tell them again to us slowly, please?
Sure, of course. So they were probably, I would say the oldest was grade 7. So maybe grade 7, grade 5, and grade 3. And as I drove through the drive-through of the school and before the door opened, I would say, believe in, and they would answer yourself. Choose your friends, and they would say wisely. And I said, what was the other one? And I would say, whatever, everyone makes mistakes. Whatever happens after a mistake makes it better or worse. So, what can you do to make sure that you learn from mistakes? And again, about the friends, it's so important because they say you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with, right? So you want to raise your average, and you want to be with people that are trying to make change, inclusive, respectful, trying to learn and grow. And that's so important at all ages, adults too, right?
Believe in
yourself, choose your friends wisely, and everyone makes mistakes. How you act after a mistake can make it better or worse.
We're going to take a break for some messages and be back in just 2 minutes with Siobhan Kukolic.
Kukolic, that's it.
Kukolic, in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everyone. This is an interesting conversation. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Siobhan Kukolic. She is an author, a storyteller. She writes to inspire the belief that we have all that we need to be the change we wish to see in the world. She's written a book called The Treasure You Seek, and it's available on Amazon and Indigo. It's about following your heart, believing in yourself beyond reason, embracing failure, and knowing that you are enough. It includes inspirational stories about famous failures, cultural icons, world leaders, and regular folks like you and me. The goal is to remind us that we all need to be the change we wish to see. She is also blogged for the Huffington Post and Thrive Global, and she blogs weekly on her website, SiobhanKukolic.com, and she gives a keynote talk on having grit. I'd love to hear it. Siobhan, welcome back to the show. And tell me, if you could, who inspires you when it comes to embracing failure?
I mean, there's lots of folks that you see on the news and on social media and that, but I have to say my parents, both from Ireland, traveled to Canada to start a life here, met here, so they didn't know each other here. But my mom specifically, like, she grew up in a small town in Ireland. She, at age 18, got accepted to be a nurse in nursing program in England, had never seen a phone, had never seen anyone outside her own village, and traveled to England to become a nurse. She then went to Scotland and trained as a midwife and delivered hundreds of babies in farmlands in Scotland, no telephones, no machines, nothing, never lost a mother, never lost a baby. And then she traveled to Canada to be a nurse here. And I just think it's the idea of the unknown and kind of taking that chance. And her mother also, who had very little education, my grandmother, but always had a dictionary on the fireplace mantle and was so loving and welcoming to her kids, supported my mom. If my grandmother had said, "Oh, I don't want you to leave the country," she would have stayed and gotten a job at home. So I think there's a lot of bravery there, and I tell a story about my mother. When she first came to Toronto, she was only here 6 weeks as a nurse, and it was just before Christmas, and she had a patient, a pregnant patient that she knew was in trouble, and she was a trained midwife, so she really knew the women's journey for pregnancy. So she phoned the doctor, and he this was, more the Mad Men era. He said, I know what the patient's going through. It's fine," and hung up on her. So then she said, she called the on-call doctor, and the line was busy. This was before, call waiting back in the day. So my mom went down to the hospital manager, who was not a medical person, and said, "If you don't have a surgeon in the hospital that can do an emergency C-section, we have to get that on-call doctor to the hospital immediately." The manager panicked and sent the police to the doctor's house. The police got there, found that the phone was off the hook. The doctor's kids had the phone off the hook. Doctor got in the police cruiser, got to the hospital, straight into the patient, straight into surgery. A couple hours later, one of the nurses said to my mom, "That doctor wants to see you." And she thought, "Oh my goodness, like, I've only been in Canada 6 weeks." And he said to my mom, 15 more minutes and that baby would have been gone. So my mom, she never gave up until she knew that she had done what was right. And she instilled that in myself and my brother. It's all about go with your heart, do what's right. You don't always know the answer, but you know what you would want done for you. Treat others as you would want to be treated.
What an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thanks, Brian.
How do you think people can bring more grit into their life? What do you talk about in your book that tells them about how, are there lessons, are there suggestions, are there little affirmations they can do? What is it that you recommend?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think lifelong learning is so big, right? Because this is the whole thing. If you're scared to be wrong, then you don't want to ask that question that makes you look like you don't know the answer. There's so many answers we don't know. And I kind of think the questions are more important. If you're asking the questions, it shows that you're thinking and connecting the dots. Critical thinking, communications. When I talk to schools, I always tell young kids, if you have a field you're interested in and you know somebody who's a leader in that field, drop them an email. I'm telling you, if a CEO got an email from somebody in grade 6 or 7 saying, "I'm really interested in your industry, could I ask you a couple of questions?" Like, 99% of them would probably at least drop an email back, might even meet you for a coffee, things like that. So definitely, reach out. I always tell my kids, action is the X factor. It changes everything. Most people who get to the top of the mountain, it's not that they're the most athletic or the most talented, it's that they just put one foot in front of the other. So constantly keep that action going. And just put yourself out there. I mean, you have to, take that opportunity that comes. So many people feel like, I'm not ready, so I'm going to keep doing the research. I'll keep kind of finding out what I should do before I start. I always say, just start and figure it out along the way. And you will learn and you'll find new information that causes you to look into something else. So I would say action is the X factor. Never give up. Believe in yourself beyond reason, because most people, it's not always, I think talent, a lot of times people think, oh, they're so talented, but there's a lot of talented people who don't make it because they don't have, the grit that comes with things not going well really pushes you along if you can walk through it. So, fall 7 times, get up 8, as they say, and you'll make it.
Fall 7 times and get up 8. You've got an incredible positive attitude. Are there things you do every day to keep your mental health, your attitude up?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, mental health is health. I'm such a big supporter of that. And I think, I feel like we're all kind of on a spectrum. Like there's some days that you feel like you're a 3 out of 10, some days you're a 10 out of 10. Obviously, there's those folks that have situations that they need more assistance with. But I think for me, I walk every day, twice a day. I get up at the same time every day, 7 days a week. I try to get my sleep. And I kind of fill my brain with, I joke with my kids, with kind of kale rather than cotton candy. So of course, you're out there, you're watching the TikTok and the different things on social media, but I do try to, read books, have conversations with people that really make me think. Because I've told my kids, creativity is really just connecting the dots. It's not always creating something brand new. It's like Steve Jobs, right? Like he, dropped out of university and then happened to sit in on a calligraphy course and was like, oh, that would be cool if fonts could be looking like calligraphy, right? So it's not complete rocket science, but if Steve Jobs wasn't such a, coder and computer guy who happened to see calligraphy in a class and put it together to come up with fonts, we wouldn't have the fonts. So, you just need to kind of read the things and experience the things that allow you to connect those dots. So it's not rocket science. It's just kind of keep going forward, and keep creativity at the forefront, lifelong learning.
You say you love books. It looks like you've got around 50 books in behind you on your mantle. It's almost a piece of art. Is it a piece of art, or is it really just a pile of
No,
books?
I worry that I'm gonna, it's gonna fall on my head here behind my camera, but I am like, I have no shelf control. I joke. When somebody who I really look up to mentions a book, I'm in an amazing book club. I thought I was a reader, and I'm with these ladies who read 60 to 70 books a year. So being with them, and I've read a lot of titles that I never even would have heard of before. And I think that's what's so important about reading and having access to books. Like, as my son said when he was running for mayor, the library is the last place where you don't have to spend anything. So you can walk in and it levels the playing field, and you can, take out the books you want. James Cameron, who, one of the most successful directors of all time, he was a truck driver who just went into one of the university libraries and was looking at thesis things from film students, and figured out how he was going to make Titanic and things like that. So the information is out there. And I think, if you read as much as you can, especially about places you haven't been, lives that you haven't lived, it really gives you an understanding of humanity. And I think we need a lot more empathy and understanding, and we have to kind of embrace everybody's mental health, especially after COVID, because so much was taken from both the students, the parents trying to run the show, business folks that were trying to keep everything going. We have to support all that, but know that we rose from the ashes, and we'll keep going, and one foot in front of the other.
I was at a keynote speech where the speaker said that one of the best things you can do for empathy to increase your emotional intelligence is read nonfiction books. Fiction books.
Fiction,
yeah. And the reason why is that by reading fiction, you actually live those other people's lives, and so therefore you gain that empathy and that emotional intelligence. Do you agree?
I 100% agree, because the book club that I'm in, I've read about other countries, so many countries that I haven't been in. We just finished one about Puerto Rico and their history. We've read about Palestine. We've read about Israel. We've read about different countries, India, and places that I've never been and would love to go. There's so many struggles that I say to my kids all the time: if we all put our troubles on the table, we'd probably take our own back, because there's so much out there that people are struggling with. Everybody has a struggle. Right. And I think that we have to remember everybody's going through something. So even, I read a book recently, The Man Called Ove, which Tom Hanks made the movie. And it was just that idea of, the curmudgeon that you meet in your life. And, it's so easy to maybe be upset with them, and they kind of, are off-putting, but you never know the story someone's living. So don't assume anything, and have that empathy. And I think fictional books 100% increase our empathy. And I hope the kids are continuing to read, because I know it's hard. I was always a reader, but smartphone came in 2007, and so did YouTube, and so did Google, and all the other things. And it's very, very hard to be not distracted in this day and age. And to be honest, multitasking is what allows most parents to survive, but it's kind of a problem too, because we really need to be able to focus on one thing at a time. Otherwise we burn out, because we just don't have the ability to do it all. So you do have to take those moments to say, okay, what am I doing right now? And I'm very blessed. Like, my kids are now kind of flying out of the nest, but all those years that I was kind of in the van with 3 of them strapped in, listening to talk radio, talking about politics, like, now it's something that they will always have. And they're not going to be here much longer, because they're growing and doing their own thing. So I'm so thrilled that I had those moments, and you can't take it back.
Well, it sounds like great moments that you had with them and great teachings that you provided them. June is the month of graduation for people from college and from high school and things like this. If you had to speak to a graduating class, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know your major, these kinds of things. I saw Brene Brown say something recently. I thought it was so powerful. She said her and her husband told her child that was going off to school, if you know exactly what you want to do, we're not going to pay for it. We want you to take every course that interests you. And I know you have to balance that with also getting training in something that you're going to come out and be able to make a living with. But I think a lot of times people, like I said, get on this track. Like, I've got this marks and I can get into this course. And, 3 or 4 years in, all of a sudden, they're not happy. And this is where mental health comes into the situation too. It can be a real struggle. So, try and get something that really interests you, and know that you can change what you're doing. You can change lanes, you can change careers. Nowadays people might have 4 or 5 careers over their lifetime. It's no more that golden handshake where you work somewhere for 50 years and you retire. So I think it's so important for that. And again, that perfection is the enemy of good. So don't think you have to know all the answers, have everything lined up. Just start walking, take action, and get involved in the community. I think, as Margaret Mead said, never doubt what a thoughtful group of citizens that they can change the world. It's the only thing that ever has. And I think it's so important for our young people to get engaged, vote, get involved in community initiatives, and support things that they believe in. And I think that, the youth are our future and they will change the world. So if they just kind of, follow their heart and their passions and give back, I think that it'll be a beautiful future.
I think one of the things that about failure that has been told to me that I really believe is that you don't learn from success, but you do learn from failure. And so therefore, if you want to actually get better, that failure is the way that you actually learn to get better. And if you only have successes in life and only have successes, you're not actually going to improve.
It's so true. And when you hear these stories, like one of the ones I talked about in my book, Anderson Cooper was someone I mentioned. I thought, here's this guy that, Cornelius Vanderbilt, they built all the trains in the States, all this money. And he was told as a young person, like, you won't be getting any money from inheritance. And I think that that's such a huge thing. So, when he graduated from college, he couldn't even get a job making coffee at any of the news networks. And so he got a little VHS camera, went to Bosnia where there was a war, and was sending back this footage that no other TV station had. And this is how he got noticed, and this is how we got in. So most people would look at him on the news at night and think, well, Anderson Cooper and Gloria Vanderbilt was his mother, and he had all these connections. But it's that thing about the failures, the not getting the jobs. What do you do with not getting the job? What do you do with the rejection? Because I really think rejection is redirection. It just kind of pushes you into that next lane that you're supposed to be in. So you absolutely, if you're successful your whole life, my kids are all Irish dancers too. And I thought it was great training for life, because you go to class, you work hard, you do not get a medal just for showing up. You might not get, my son at one point didn't place for years, and he would look at it and say, oh, I was 2 better than the last competition. I was 1 off the placing this time. And then it gets sweeter and sweeter as you go. If you need to win every time, you're going to be sorely disappointed when you get out into the real world, right? Because it's not going to happen.
Siobhan Kukolic, thank you so much for joining us today. Author of the book, The Treasure You Seek, which is available at Amazon and Indigo. I got to go out and get it. Sounds like it's a fascinating book, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about grit and failure, etc. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Brian. Have a great day.
We're going to take a break and come back with another guest in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everybody.